Our training camp position previews continue. Orange and blue today. We are presented by Champ Honda, Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and going to the Broncos defensive line, which means last year they had a big addition in DJ Jones. We'll get to him in a little bit. This year they have a big addition, Zach Allen. Man alive, is it fun to watch him out there, and I'm sure Broncos fans will have fun watching him not only in training camp, but once the regular season gets here. We've got some talent, big name talent to talk about on this defensive line.
Talent and energy as well. Zach Allen plays with a great deal of intensity out there. You can see why Vance Joseph wanted to make sure that he was a part of what he was doing here in Denver. I mean, and if you look at last year and compare Zach Allen to Draymond Jones, and I think you kind of have to make that comparison because they could have had Draymond back. They could have. And they chose Zach Allen over him. Zach Allen, actually, by some metrics that you use, more efficient as an interior pass rusher last year than Draymond Jones was. What you're counting on is him continuing that ascension over the last couple of years. Draymond Jones, in the end, fairly consistent over the 4 years that he was in Denver. Zach Allen improved greatly in his last 2 seasons from his first 2 seasons. Both, of course, were part of the draft class of 2019. Both picked very similar. They're very similar range as well. The question is, now you're taking Zach Allen away from a place where he had J.J. Watt, who found the fountain of youth last year in his last season before retirement. J.J. is getting a lot of the attention down there this year. You look around the Broncos edge rushers, and there are injury questions, no doubt. Zach Allen's going to be a bit more of a focal point for opposing blockers. How does he handle that? How does he handle seeing some more double teams than he saw last year? That may well play a role in just how effective he can be when you put the pads on and things start counting.
And I could see statistically his numbers taking a little bit of a dip, or I could see statistically. Why can't I say that? Statistically,
because you're a fantasy football stats guy.
Ha,
so
right,
you should be
right.
able to get it right. Yeah.
I know. Statistically, I could see Draymond Jones being better, quote unquote, but it's all about what you're doing. I've often said with Derek Wolfe, like, he gave up a lot of his numbers so Von Miller could get his numbers. So if you tell me there's a tandem, an edge will be a different show, a different training camp preview show. But like, if you can tell me there's some sort of tandem, they're running some sort of games like Wolf did with Von Miller, if that's Randy Gregory or whoever, like, that'll make me feel better. But I believe that Zach Allen would be high quality play, but I'm not going to stare specifically at sack total. It's about disrupted dropbacks for me, Mace. I don't know about you. We'll get super geeky with advanced data, but it's disrupted dropbacks. That's the number I'm looking for.
Yeah, disruptive dropbacks, pressure rate, whatever you want to say, effective pressure
pass
rate.
rush win rate.
Yes, I know that Pro Football Focus loves that one. Those are what you're looking at more than the finishing. That being said, finishing is a skill. So actually knocking down the quarterback, whether it's just a hit or a sack, I think that is something that matters. But if we look at Zach Allen, and maybe he doesn't have the prodigious sack total, but he's setting other people up to make plays, he's drawn and others can flourish, then you're happy with that too. But I would caution anybody looking for an apples to apples replacement here for Draymond Jones to maybe slow the roll a little bit and just say success for Zach Allen in 2023 may look a little bit different. Now, if you look around and he's drawing doubles on the interior, and maybe you see Matt Henningsen cleaning up and getting 3 or 4 sacks, which is something that could very well happen. Maybe a Baron Browning with a career high in sacks, and as long as Randy Gregory is healthy, making some plays. If you get that, then I think those are other ways you can indicate that Zach Allen's doing his job and is a success out there.
Now, what's funny, and since you brought him up, Mace, I'll jump in because I was going to save him for a little bit. And DJ Jones is so significant for this defense. But because you bring up Henningsen, I don't know about you, and this isn't revealing too much, but I watched Henningsen almost mimic and mirror what Zach Allen did Now he's not as good. He's not as bendy. He's not as
Yeah.
bursty. But like in terms of technique, Henningson's technique is right on point with what Allen does.
Yeah, and he's the classic high motor guy who can put himself in position to take advantage of one-on-one opportunities because somebody else is getting doubled up front.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that you're looking at with him. Nobody is expecting him to be otherworldly as a pass rusher. It's just not a skill set that he has. He's not mammoth compared to other defensive linemen. He's not freakishly athletic, like you say. He doesn't have that bend, but technique wise, he's solid. And if you're doing that along with having a lot of intelligence to read things and put yourself in the right spot and not get caught out of position, then that's something where you look up at the end of the season and you actually do have some numbers to talk about at the end of the year because all of that accumulated over the season. Don't be surprised if Matt Henningsen is starting week 1 in the base package at one of the defensive end spots, starting opposite Zach Allen. He's very well in the mix for that role. I'd say right now it's interesting between him and Eni Uwazurike. Uwazurike's probably got the advantage in terms of being physical. He's got the advantage in terms of length, athleticism. I think these are areas in which he has an edge. But at the same time, Henningsen's probably got a little bit of a higher motor than Uwazurike at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They're both on the upside. I don't want to put down any Uwazurike because both of them are ascending players, and I expect them both to be not only on the 53, but playing substantially. Frankly, one of the reasons why we're talking about this team not having Deshaun Williams and letting him walk to Carolina is because the Broncos had a lot of confidence in Uwazurike and Henningsen. You have Marcus Dixon, one of the 2 returning position coaches on the defensive side, working with this group. His word went a long way in determining what this defensive line room looks like. And if those guys didn't have Marcus Dixon's confidence, I think they would have probably tried to make a huge effort to get Deshaun Williams back, but they didn't because of what they saw in those 2. We always say focus on what they do, not what they say. What they did was they let Deshaun Williams walk because of those 2 day 3 picks, both of whom are coming along very nicely.
We both have countless pages in our notebook, so we can't really say what we want to say, but I will say this about Uwazurike. He's wild. Mm-hmm. He's wild. Like there now, I think he might run out of gas a little bit. That's when the motor thing comes in, and his technique isn't as sharp. I'm telling you, Henningsen is as sharp as Allen, technique wise. I think Eni is a little bit more wild in terms of his technique. And man, when he's got the energy, like it could be a force. He could be a force up front for the Broncos. Might want to work on that stamina and making sure he's got enough gas in the tank to stay that way as the game goes on.
The other thing I want to see him work on, we get into special teams. He at Iowa State was terrific at blocking place kicks. I'd like to see him get more active there. We could be talking about somebody who in that aspect of his role is as good as Shelby Harris was when he was here. Part of the equation for Shelby was the ability to get the hand up and get his hand on some place kicks every now and again. I think Uwazurike has that as well. And that's another reason why I think you're going to see him get a jersey every week, because you want to have him out there for that role too.
Yeah, it's a nice tool to have in the tool belt as we talk about the defensive line. I can't believe we waited this long to get to DJ Jones, but we do have significant players, obviously, in Zach Allen. But if we're talking about doubling Allen, I'm thinking of DJ Jones one-on-one, and I'm like, well, that's a problem for opponents. That could be a real bad problem. DJ Jones as a pass rusher, as an interior pass rusher, which is crucial in today's NFL. Edge guys, you get there 2.5 seconds, ball is out.
Yeah.
Interior pressure makes every quarterback look mortal. You want to take down Pat Mahomes for the first time ever, you do it because you get plays from a guy like DJ Jones.
Yeah, I think the key for DJ Jones is kind of managing the reps properly, because with his body type, you're not talking about someone who's going to play 75, 80% of the snaps. It's load management with his body. as he gets into the middle stages of his career. So even though the pass rush ability wasn't really talked about when the Broncos brought him in, we saw flashes of it last year in terms of generating pressure. And I think we're going to see some more flashes of it this year. And actually, if you see Henningsen and Awazarike coming along, you can feel comfortable with them, maybe Jonathan Harris rotating in as well, to where you're saying, all right, we don't, we can let DJ Jones rest this possession. It's weird to say this, but kind of a wild card in the room is Mike Purcell, but we haven't seen him out there just yet in the offseason. He's at the stage of his career where he seems like he's always kind of trying to come back from an injury of some sort. And frankly, with Mike Purcell, man, he's going to have a good camp, because that contract that he's got, it's very easy for the Broncos to move on from him and generate some cap savings if need be. It's a mild surprise to me that they haven't made that move already, but I think it also tells you the esteem in which people in that building hold Mike Purcell. But he's going to have a good camp, because he's looking around and he's seeing younger competition that has better contracts cap-wise. It could be a numbers game that works against the Highlands Ranch product.
Yeah, and you need that guy. Every team needs that sort of steady run stuffer, space eater. But there are others on this defensive line as well. Jonathan Harris is a player I've had eyes on since he came out of Lindenwood. Jordan Jackson made my notebook a few times. Again, offseason, no pads, whatever. We have an international player. Mace, I'll let you handle his name.
You want me to put the pronunciation?
Yes, please, since you have the pronunciation guide in front of you.
Haggai, Chisholm, and Dubuisi. Now,
that's just the way it's spelled, in Dubuisi.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, he doesn't count toward the roster. He is very specifically a player who is being he's being brought in as part of the NFL's international development program. He is from Nigeria. He's 22 years old, born in Nigeria. Went to high school in Ghana, learning how to play football. He played soccer and basketball, literally learned about American football on YouTube, believe it or not. I'm going to throw a name at you here, because he's not the first international player that's gotten a long look. You remember Patrice McJohn-Nwamba back in the mid-2000s?
Yes.
Uh-huh. It's kind of the same program working here. So you're going to get a look at him. So far, I mean, we talk about technique with Matt Henningsen and Chisholm and Buisi. It's kind of the exact opposite at this point. But again, it's understandable. Matt Henningsen, playing football his entire life. Haggai, Chisholm, and Buisi, he just took up the game in the last couple of years. So you don't expect him to. You don't expect him to be there. But you're talking about a guy who's long as well, 6'6", 298 pounds, and so he's a guy you'll take a second and third look at, because if you can get the technique right and get a bit more weight on this frame. I mean, what if he can carry 315, 320, and that's a good 315, 320 on a 6'6" frame, and he can learn to get the arms up. I mean, I do kind of wish that Bill Kolar was still around on the staff to coach him on that, because he was the best at that. That if you can't get to the quarterback, get the arms up, because you can still make a play that way. That something for a guy whose reach is like Haggai, Chisholm, and Buisi's. That's the sort of thing that could give him a pathway to stick. But he needs reps. Like, if we were talking about this being the NFL Europe days, you'd be sending him over there. This guy needs reps. I just don't know if he's going to get enough of them just working in practice for the Broncos. But it's cool to see the Broncos taking part in this, and the NFL working to have more international development. Another guy who has a much more conventional development path is Tyler Lancaster, who came over during the offseason as well. And I think
is he a Purcell insurance policy? We talked about him when they signed him a little bit on this show, because Tyler Lancaster is I don't know, typecast, whatever you want to say. Like, we know who he is. He's not going to
Yeah.
do anything extra, but what he does might be what you need, especially if Purcell can't make it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, again, a more cap friendly contract than Mike Purcell has as well. And so, if you're getting into a bean counting decision, Lancaster's contract is easier to keep unless you can figure out a restructure with Mike Purcell. Now, part of what Purcell, remember, he got cut last year for a day and brought back a procedural move so the Broncos could get some guys to injured reserve. One of the things they did for Purcell is they promised him, look, we're going to bring you back in a day and your contract's going to be the exact same. And they did, and he made his money last year, and then all went well. The Broncos kept their promises as they should have. But right now that contract works against him with somebody like Lancaster and even some of those younger defensive linemen that we're talking about who are simply more budget-friendly options under the cap. You know, if there were no salary cap, I think Mike Purcell would probably be safe, barring injury.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not the reality in which we live.
Yeah. So the Broncos, do you believe, and we've talked about this at other positions, is there a depth problem? Will they be looking, and they're always looking, so the answer is yes, but would they be prompted if someone else is cut on the defensive line from another team? My answer is yes. How quickly, are they scouring the waiver wire? These are things we can discuss, but yeah, I think depth, depending on Purcell, like you've got a little bit of depth concern here. Not a lot, but just a little.
I think so. Now you'll feel better about the depth if you can see the continued development of Henningsen and Wazirike. Those two guys, if they come along as we've seen so far, then I think you're feeling good. But right now, it's sort of the fear of the unknown here because you are talking about a scenario in which Henningsen and Wazirike, two players who are relatively unproven, are going to get significant rotational snaps based on how we expect this to work, unless Jonathan Harris comes in and picks one of them off for one of those spots. So I think it's a little bit of the fear of the unknown because we haven't seen all that much of them yet, but they can be effective. And I think when we get to the end of the preseason and regular season and they've got another camp under their belts, I think you're going to feel more confident in where the depth in this unit stands. And if Henningsen has to start a few games, and if Wazirike has to start a few games, I don't think it's the end of the world. The thing is, though, if you do lose Zach Allen, you're in a pickle. You're not replacing Zach Allen. I think maybe that's what kind of feels different right now. Even though, is it all that different? When you lost Draymond Jones last year, you were in a pickle, right? I mean, in a 3-4 alignment, how many high-level guys are you going to have realistically? I mean, it's not like, it's not as simple as going out to the other guy tree and picking another guy. Like,
Right.
Like Shanahan would say, oh, we'll get another guy. Eventually, there are no other guys on the other guy tree. So,
yeah, 3-4 DN. Aaron Smith's don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Shout out UNC. Anyway, there we go. That's a wrap for the defensive line show. Our training camp previews continue. It's orange and blue today. We are presented by Champ Honda. He's Mace. I'm Cecil. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.